Max Verstappen just signed an insane long-term commitment to Red Bull, and it's got the rest of the grid talking, especially given recent rumors about him being packed and ready to leave. So what changed, and what does this mean for his career? Let's break it all down. In it for an even longer haul. Max Verstappen spent the last week of the Formula One summer break doing the one thing most of the paddock had stopped expecting him to do. He picked up a pen and tied himself to Oracle Red Bull Racing for 4 more years. The new contract runs to the end of the 2030 season, and the team made the announcement on the 20th of August 2026. The date was picked with care. The news landed just before his home Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, the race where the grandstands turn orange and the smoke flares go off before the cars have even left the pit lane. There is an extra layer to it this year because this weekend is the final edition of the race at that circuit. The Dutch Grand Prix came back from the dead in the first place because a Dutch driver started winning everything in sight. So the last one gets a farewell gift wrapped in a contract. To understand why the news hit so hard, you have to look at the deal it replaces. Verstappen was already under contract to the end of 2028. He signed that one in March of 2022, only a few weeks after he had won his first World Championship in the most dramatic final lap the sport has ever produced. That contract was reported at the time as one of the biggest in Formula One history. It also carried performance-related brake clauses, quiet little escape hatches written into the fine print, and the reporting says those clauses became live this season because of where the car finished on Sunday afternoons. So the man already had a way out. He chose to add 2 more years on top instead. The extension effectively locks him in through 2030. Verstappen is 28 right now. By the time the final race of that deal is done, he will be 33 years old, and he will have completed 15 seasons in Formula One with the senior Red Bull team after being promoted into it in the middle of 2016. Very few drivers in the history of the sport have spent that long in one garage. The scoreboard behind that garage is the reason the whole grid pays attention. Together, they have won 4 Drivers' World Championships, 2 Constructors' titles, and 71 Grand Prix victories. The official statements describe the pairing as one of the most successful and defining partnerships in F1 history. And for once, that kind of language holds up when you check it against the record books. Verstappen's own statement was built around family. He called Red Bull his second family, which is a phrase he has used about the team for years now, and he pointed straight at the people inside the factory. "We have the best people, and I'm excited to keep working together with everyone to get back to the top again. This remains the ultimate goal," he said. Then came the line that explains the whole thing. "To continue this journey with the same team that I have been with my whole career is really special and something I have always wanted to do." The response from the other side of the desk was just as warm. Laurent Mekies, who has now been team principal and chief executive for over a year following Christian Horner's departure, described keeping the best driver on the grid as fantastic news and made a point of highlighting how the relationship has held up through the good seasons and the ugly ones. Verstappen returned the compliment publicly, which matters more than it sounds because Mekies inherited a team in the middle of a leadership earthquake and needed his star driver to say out loud that he believed in the plan. There is a wider message inside the announcement too. The extension reads as a major vote of confidence in Mekies and in the long-term vision behind the team, including the money being poured into new infrastructure, the decision to build engines in-house through Red Bull Ford powertrains, and the culture Mekies is trying to rebuild after a turbulent 18 months. If the contract is seen through to the finish, the partnership will rank among the longest driver and team tenures in modern Formula One. Drivers of this quality almost never spend an entire career in one place. They get poached, they chase the fastest car, or they fall out with somebody in the motorhome. This one keeps re-signing. Then there is the money, which nobody involved will confirm, and everybody in the paddock talks about anyway. Exact figures are private, as they are with most Formula One contracts. Earlier reporting put his previous deal somewhere around £60 million a year, or roughly $70 to $76 million once you fold in the bonuses. The estimates floating around this extension push the new package toward $100 million per year, with some outlets suggesting he could become the first driver in the sport's history to break through that barrier. His personal sponsorship income sits on top of all that. These remain paddock estimates built on paddock sources, so treat the number as a ballpark. The confirmation went out across every major outlet on the same day, from Reuters to Sky Sports to Al Jazeera, and the effect on the sport was immediate. The deal is widely seen as ending the near-term speculation about a switch for 2027, which in turn steadies the driver lineups at the front of the grid. When the best driver in the world stops shopping, every other seat on the market suddenly stops moving too. Here is the part that makes all of this genuinely strange. 6 weeks ago, half the paddock was convinced he was gone. The season that convinced everyone he was leaving. Formula One tore up its rulebook for 2026. The cars run to major new chassis and power unit regulations, and Red Bull did something no team had dared for decades. They started building their own engines. Red Bull Ford Powertrains is in its first season as a manufacturer, which is like cooking Christmas dinner for 40 people on the day you learn how to use an oven. The results have been brutal after 11 races. Verstappen sits 6th in the drivers' standings on 109 points. He is 110 points behind the championship leader, Kimi Antonelli, and Red Bull have slipped to 4th in the Constructors' Championship. For a team that treated the top step of the podium as a season ticket, 4th place is a foreign country. He has not won a single race all year. His best afternoons have been 2 second places at the Austrian Grand Prix and in Hungary, plus a 3rd place in Belgium. That is a respectable haul for most of the grid, and a famine for a man who has spent the last 5 years complaining about how boring it is to lead from lights to flag. Meanwhile, the car in front of him has been wearing silver. Mercedes came out of the new rules with the strongest package, and their teenage driver has been running away with the year. Antonelli has taken 6 victories while still being young enough that his rivals were racing go-karts when he was born. Verstappen has been generous about it in public, praising Antonelli for being rock solid and calling his first half of the season really impressive. In private and in press conferences, he has been far less generous about the cars themselves. Verstappen has been open about how much he dislikes the energy management demands of the new hybrids. The constant lifting and saving and battery juggling that the regulations force on a driver who would rather just point the thing at the corner and go. He has voiced clear frustration with the car's performance too, and when a 4-time world champion says he does not enjoy the current machinery, agents around the world start returning calls very quickly. That is exactly what happened. He was linked with moves to both Mercedes and McLaren, and the McLaren link had teeth because his longtime race engineer Giampiero Lambiase is set to join that team by 2028 at the latest. That is the voice in his ear on every single lap he has driven for a decade. There were also serious suggestions that he might walk away from Formula One completely because of how much he disliked the new regulations. The performance clauses in his old deal reportedly handed him an exit option after this season, so the door was unlocked and somebody had already oiled the hinges. Then Red Bull did something about the car. The team brought a significant multi-part upgrade package to the Austrian Grand Prix on home ground, and the driver noticed straight away. Verstappen described it as a very big step forward, then backed it up with 2nd in Austria, 3rd in Belgium, and 2nd again in Hungary before the summer break. The pace was suddenly close to McLaren and Ferrari on certain weekends, even if Mercedes stayed out in front. He refused to get carried away by any of it. Asked about a title fight after Austria, he said the gap was very big and that the team still had too many issues with starts, procedures, and general consistency. To fight for a title, we need to be more all-round. That is a man doing maths in public and not liking the answer. So the talks over the summer happened against that backdrop. A struggling car, a leadership change, an engineer packing his bags, 2 of the sport's biggest teams waving at him, and a contract clause sitting there like an unlocked fire exit. The talks progressed well, and he decided to stay and left every one of his options untouched. All of that happened while the furniture inside the team was being rearranged. Christian Horner was replaced by Miki's during 2025, and Helmut Marko, the man who found Verstappen in the first place, later left as well. Verstappen publicly backed Marko through the internal tensions that led up to it, and he has stayed in regular contact with Horner since the sacking. He watched both of his oldest allies walk out of the building and then signed on for 4 more years anyway. The reason he stayed is buried 12 years in the past. In August of 2014, at the age of 16, Verstappen joined the Red Bull Junior team off the back of a rookie Formula 3 season where he finished 3rd overall with a stack of wins for Van Amersfoort Racing. Mercedes wanted him too, and they offered him a slower and more sensible path to the top. Red Bull, through motorsport advisor Helmut Marko, offered him a rocket. Marko later said the whole deal was sealed in about 20 minutes. Days later, he was announced as a Toro Rosso driver for 2015. He became the youngest starter in Formula One history at the Australian Grand Prix at 17 years and 166 days old, scored points repeatedly with a best finish of 4th, and ended the year 12th in the championship on 49 points, alongside his teammate Carlos Sainz. Then came the promotion that rewrote the record books. 4 races into 2016, Red Bull moved Verstappen up to the senior team for the Spanish Grand Prix and sent Daniil Kvyat the other way. On his debut for the big team, aged 18 years and 228 days, the 2 Mercedes drivers crashed into each other on the opening lap, and the teenager in the blue car went on to win the race. He finished that season 5th overall with 204 points, and Red Bull have never let him go since. That history explains the loyalty. The harder question is what this piece of paper has just done to everybody else on the grid, and that is where things get uncomfortable. What it does to the rest of the grid. Verstappen's new deal is now one of the longest and clearest commitments in all of Formula One. Very few drivers on the current grid have contracts that stretch anywhere near that far. Most of the field is tied down only until 2027 or 2028, and plenty are out of contract sooner than that. When one man locks in 4 extra years at a front-running team, every negotiation behind him gets harder. The only driver in the same neighborhood is Charles Leclerc. Ferrari announced a multi-year extension for him in the early part of this season, timed ahead of his own home race in Monaco, a piece of theatre Red Bull have now copied at Zandvoort. Leclerc has been a Ferrari driver since 2019. He is the same age as Verstappen at 28, and he carries the same kind of deep single-team identity. He is the closest match on the grid for long-term security at a top team. No other full-time driver on the current grid has a publicly confirmed or strongly reported contract that reaches as far as 2030. The next longest deals in the paddock finish 2 full seasons earlier than his does. Verstappen has also spent his whole career inside the Red Bull family, from the junior program in 2014 onward, and Leclerc carries that same one-badge identity at Ferrari. Almost everybody else has already switched teams at least once. After that pair, the deals get shorter fast. Oscar Piastri is signed to McLaren through at least the end of 2028. On a multi-year extension he agreed in 2025. He is younger than Verstappen, rated extremely highly, and still building a record with far fewer wins and no championships. Carlos Sainz is tied to Williams through 2028, with options attached. That name should sound familiar, because Sainz was the man sitting on the other side of the Toro Rosso garage in 2015, when Verstappen was too young to drive himself to the circuit. He has become a proper race winner, and a former Ferrari driver in the years since, and he is now negotiating his future from a midfield team, while his old teammate signs the richest contract in the sport. Pierre Gasly is in a similar position at Alpine, signed through 2028. Gasly knows exactly what it feels like to be measured against Verstappen at close range. He was promoted to Red Bull in 2019 and lasted only 12 races before being demoted, with Alex Albon taking over the seat and struggling to match the same benchmark through 2020. That is the pattern that follows this driver around. Daniel Ricciardo was the only teammate who consistently took the fight to him early on, outscoring him in 2016 and 2017 before the balance tipped and Ricciardo left for Renault at the end of 2018. Sergio Perez then lasted 4 seasons from 2021 to 2024, the longest partnership of the lot, contributing key wins and points while being consistently outperformed. Further up the current grid, the contracts are shorter still. Lando Norris is committed to McLaren at least through 2027 on a multi-year arrangement. Norris is the reigning world champion after beating Verstappen by 2 points in 2025, and he is still younger with a shorter list of titles and wins behind him. The man he beat is now signed for 3 years longer than he is. Lewis Hamilton is contracted to Ferrari through 2027 with possible options. Hamilton has 7 world championships and the all-time record for race wins, so on the historical scoreboard, he is still far ahead of everyone. He turned 41 this year though, and his deal reflects a driver in the later stage of a long career. George Russell is signed to Mercedes at least through 2027 as well, sitting alongside the current championship leader. Almost everybody else is on something even looser. Kimi Antonelli, Isak Hadjar, Fernando Alonso, and the lineups at Haas, Audi, Cadillac, and Racing Bulls are on deals ending in 2026 or 2027, or on open and rolling arrangements. With the Verstappen question answered, the immediate focus of the driver market now shifts elsewhere, starting with Alonso's future at Aston Martin. The pay gap tells the same story as the contract lengths. Verstappen is the highest paid driver in the sport by a distance, with estimates around $100 million a year after this extension. Leclerc and Hamilton sit in the tier below him, and the rest of the field drops away substantially from there. None of that changes the actual championship in front of him. The mathematical possibility of a 5th title is technically alive with the rest of the calendar to run, and there is a real precedent for it. Last year, he closed a deficit of around 100 points in the second half of the season to finish just 2 points behind Norris. Analysts point out that Red Bull's underlying pace deficit and limited remaining development tokens make a repeat of that surge far less likely this time, and the expert consensus puts the fight between Antonelli and the Hamilton, Russell and Ferrari group, with McLaren lurking. Red Bull's own attention is already sliding toward 2027, which brings us to the small print and the reason this story is not quite as settled as the headlines suggest. Performance-related mechanisms are expected to remain inside the new contract, as they are in most Formula One deals, and the exact details have not been disclosed. The same analysis notes that while the extension confirms his commitment to the team and the sport in the medium term, the risk of a future departure has not fully vanished if the results keep sliding. The longest commitment on the grid still has a door built into it, and everybody who signed it knows exactly where that door door is. The man himself told us what would keep it shut. The plan is to get back to the top again, and that remains the ultimate goal. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.